I want to first maybe go around and to give everyone an opportunity to introduce yourself. How do you what's your experience with creative AI and what you do from a community building perspective and what brought you here today? We'll start with Min.
Hey everybody, I'm Min, basically co-founder of Machine Cinema. What we do is we run educational events and community events all around the world. In the last 2 years, we've done over 100 events, which we call Gen Jams. And so that's one side of the world that we do. We do a lot of Gen Jams. In this month alone, we've done 20 events, which is a little crazy, in Nigeria, in Spain, in San Francisco, in LA, all over the world. And the other side of the business, we also have an AI production house. So that's our focus. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Evans. I'm a professor at the University of Texas Department of Arts and Entertainment Technologies, which is in the College of Fine Arts, so directly related to anything connecting creative technology into the arts. And in addition to doing that, I am co-founder of a space in Austin, Texas called Data Lab, and I'm the managing director of our nonprofit in Austin called Data Geek. Data Geek's been around for about 10 years. It's also founded in the idea of creating education around arts and technology, particularly creating a community in Austin of creative technologists that has grown and grown and grown over the years. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And Xuelong.
Hi everyone, Xuelong. I am a technical director at a creative studio and production company in New York called Zero Space. And Zero Space, we do virtual production, we do motion capture, 3D animation, work with tons of consumer brands, tech companies, major studios. So we kind of run the gamut of creative technology and visual storytelling. And I sort of have a background in filmmaking and engineering, sort of came up through game development into the real-time space. And at Zero Space, we're constantly trying to innovate and push the boundary of what's possible with technology, with these things like motion capture, virtual production. So when AI sort of first became a thing, and I've been tracking this since like GAN style transfer in like 2019, right? So when it started to become viable for creative production in 2023-ish and Comfy UI started coming out, you could really start to work with these. We've been doing a ton of R&D to figure out how to incorporate this into artist workflows and use these tools in a way that artists find amplifies their creativity rather than stifle it.
All right. So, for today's discussion, we really want to talk about how AI is transforming and impacting the creative communities, right? And you all are community organizers. Maybe we'll start with Xuelong from in terms of the opportunities and what's possible. You talked about coming from virtual production. Earlier we saw a tour of a virtual production studio where Dimension 5 folks are showing us the walls and kind of the methods. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the most exciting possibility that you see especially in the real-time generative AI space?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and we're in a very exciting time right now with how good the models are getting and all the breakthroughs that are happening and increasing the performance of these models and tuning them to run in real time. So overall, I would sort of break down the ways in which real-time video AI can be used into both 2D workflows for virtual production and 3D workflows. Because if you have a wall, you can just put like 2D content on that too, right? You can just go outside and shoot a video of the street, and you can put that on a wall, and if you frame up the camera just right, it will be convincing. So you don't necessarily need the full capabilities of like world models to get something working in virtual production. You could shoot a music video with some really stylized graphics, animations in the background, or maybe just some like background skyscrapers of a city line, of a city skyline, and that looks convincing right now, as long as you're careful with where you place the camera and where you place the talent in a virtual production set. So I think today we can do that right now, where with some of these technologies like stream diffusion, depending on the ultimate bar for your quality, you can shoot a music video or you can shoot a short film on a stage with stream diffusion, driving those graphics, driving that background. If you're trying to aim for high-end commercial production or Hollywood film or TV, there's maybe still a little bit of refinement that needs to be done to get the temporal consistency there when it comes to real time. But I think that's definitely coming as the hardware gets better and the models get better, and folks in the community are working with these models and continue to make those incremental improvements. Now, that's 2D. And I also want to talk a little bit about 3D. So in virtual production, we have a concept called real-time in-camera VFX, which means that you put a tracking system on the camera, and it's being tracked in 3D space, and you have a real-time virtual environment, typically done in a game engine, with an environment that artists have created that you're seeing perspectives into, right? So the virtual camera, there is a virtual camera that's rendering a viewport, and that camera perspective is synced to the on-set actual live camera that you're shooting the talent with. And these two things move in lockstep. In order to create a convincing illusion of reality, when you move the camera, when you push it in, or when you tilt it or pan it, it needs to provide the exactly consistent view of what that virtual environment should be. Now, this is where we start to think about world models, right? Because in world models, you get to actually interact with this environment, and you can drive the position of the camera in a way that is real-time and adaptable to a move, let's say a camera move that you want to do on set. That wasn't possible before with video generation models, because you would have to wait 8 minutes for this thing to be generated. So with world models, we're sort of seeing an opportunity to circle around the game engine or the 3D engine. And there's a question of like, when is a world model a 3D render and when is it a video generator? So you're sort of seeing these world model companies attack this problem from both angles. And if the video model is good enough to provide you a convincing sort of world that's internally consistent, like if you pan away from that and you pan back and it still looks the same, then you've essentially solved the problem and you're already there. But if it can't get there, or if there are some sort of inherent limitations, then maybe we need to explore more of a 3D approach, where you have a 3D sort of grounding, right? A 3D prior. So it's maybe some kind of low fidelity 3D representation of this environment that then the world model is doing some kind of like photorealism layer on top of. So that way, there's always this underlying 3D representation of your virtual scene, and you can do whatever you need to do with the camera, and when you come back to square one, you're always seeing that exact output. So that's also a tremendous opportunity to continue innovating and getting these world models to a state where they can do that.
That's great. Cool. Anyone have anything else to add here? Yeah.
I mean, sure. I mean, I can add on to that. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot there that's really exciting. I'd say there's, in addition to, I think, some of like the crossover with motion capture that you're working with inside of virtual production studios, because it's always really fascinating. So in the lab that I work at in the UT campus, the Lab for Immersive Media, we do a lot of motion capture-based work there. But a lot of it is displaced from the virtual production side of things. What's great is like how this technology can be used in so many different ways. One of the things that we've been diving into a lot is markerless motion capture, which uses AI technology to do multi-camera skeletal tracking, where someone can walk into a space and immediately be tracked all the way down to the individual fingers. And our purpose for that is not necessarily like, say, virtual production output, but embodied interactions. Right? So like, what can we do that when I walk into a space that I can activate lights in imagery, in spatial audio in order to create those kinds of immersive experiences? And with that, that's where I'm really excited about what, say, technology like stream diffusion has been able to supply to us to create and take that even further with the visual side of things. So we're not just working inside of game engines, right? But these different types of generated 3D world spaces that are slowly evolving in front of us. So there's a lot of potential inside of that as well. So yeah, not only I think in the virtual production side of things, but more even in the art installation and immersive art category as well.
I guess a little comment. I come from the AI film side of things, and what I'm most excited about is just like how does things like Kling and VO 3.1, et cetera, Sora 2, how does that end up blurring into like 3D, what you guys are talking about? What, things where, I don't know if you remember Genesis at the end of last year. I'm just like still waiting for Genesis to arrive, right? And how does that end up blurring the lines of, hey, I can generate a video in VO 3.1, then I can generate a 3D environment from that, then I'm generating a game from that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so that is really exciting from the filmmaking point of view.
Nice, nice. And so, talking about the opportunities, there's clearly a lot of room for innovation. I think a lot of the folks in this room are working on a lot of that, right? At the same time, I think there's also this other side of the impact of AI on, especially on creative communities. And we've heard a little bit today earlier with what Matt had to go through, and he had to really explain what's happening to the community because there's a lot of controversy. Yeah, I'm curious, what are some of the frictions that you all are noticing from the communities that you're all in? Maybe we'll start with Min.
Well, so I do these workshops with companies, with organizations, and a few months ago did one in Los Angeles, where we had invited all fairly experienced filmmakers, 15, 20, 30 years in Hollywood, and 12 of them showed up out of 30 that were invited. 6 of them were locked in right away. They were like, we're ready to learn AI. They were starting to play around with all the little tools that I was showing them, Midjourney, et cetera. And another set of people were just there to throw stones. And one person was like, immediately, first question, what about copyright? Second question, what? And at one point, person from the WGA, a writer, was like, what you're doing is evil, and you're evil. And so that is kind of, and I've also I tweet a lot sometimes, and sometimes I write about, like how I think AI creativity is genuinely a counterculture. I think it is like hip hop, I think it is like punk rock. Even though artists hate AI, I do think that the AI artists are a counterculture that is interesting, that is about empowerment, that is about new stories being told, where, I was in Nigeria a few weeks ago. There are people in Nigeria who spend, $5,000, $7,000 to make a feature film, right, which is astronomically small compared to what people are spending in Hollywood, but they're so excited because AI allows them to bring the quality of their productions way closer to what they're producing in Hollywood, right? And that's exciting from the point of view of, hey, there are more stories than ever going to be told. Even if there's going to be slop, there's also going to be better stories at the same time. And our sense of originality and creativity is going to shift along with that. So that's kind of where I'm kind of like, I think we're all figuring out where does this land, right? But I do feel like on one side, my optimism is that there's way more stories than ever going to be told, which is really exciting. And I genuinely think that everybody deserves like a Godfather level film. Like the production value, the writing, the production value, all of that should be of that quality from everywhere in the world. I think everybody has stories of that quality and should have the tools to tell stories of that quality. At the same time, we're grappling with slop, we're grappling with misinformation, we're not gonna know what reality is, all of that also being true. So I think that I'm, of course, leaning into the future of this and what a lot of what Matt was saying really resonates to me. But at the same time, I'm like, we who are in Los Angeles have to grapple with the fact that, like SAG-AFTRA, while we were here today, I don't know if you guys saw, but SAG-AFTRA issued out a statement. They were like, they're thankful that OpenAI has agreed to do opt-in with Sora 2, right? So in my opinion, like OpenAI, Sam was like, let's just let Sora 2 rip, and then we'll apologize later. We'll ask for forgiveness after we got everything out. But at the same time, like all of the people who played with Sora 2 were like, in my opinion, felt empowered to play with IP, to mess around with parody, to play around with making SpongeBob, drive off from the cops. It's kind of a funny moment, right? So I think we are seeing this like Pandora's box open and close, and it's, I don't know, for me it's fun, right? So.
Anybody else?
Sure. Yeah. At AET we have a motto that is an unapologetic optimism about new technology. In that we want to embrace those new technologies because we understand that they are going to be present in our world, and that we need to embrace them and utilize them and make good things with them. So I think a lot of that concern I definitely share. And I understand that. There was a great presenter earlier that was talking about the difference between AI as a tool versus a medium, and about how it really is becoming that medium, right? And it's becoming something that we can do something more broad with, which is really exciting. And I really resonated with that moment. And there's a lot of these concerns that we've heard again and again and again, copyright and all of these, right? And they are legitimate concerns, and we do need to concern ourselves with them. But one of them that I think is overlooked quite a bit I mean, I'm working with young adults every single day, and seeing some of the mental health challenges that some of these kids are dealing with, these young adults are dealing with, because nowadays being able to digest media is easier than ever. It can be done by yourself in your home, on your phone, at any point in time. And that limits the interactions that we're having with other people gathering in spaces like this to communicate and engage with other humans. And that is very impactful on our mental health, especially of some of these young adults. So there is both sides to this coin when it comes to AI and AI video as well, because this could be a tool that is also used to just expand on those issues, because it becomes easier and easier and easier to produce this maybe AI slop or whatever type of easily digestible media that can be out there. Or we have incredible artists like Spencer who are producing some of these like incredible crossover AI visuals with lasers that are used inside of live event situations that are designed to have people come and gather and witness in awe of these amazing things this technology is doing. And as long as that is our focus, if we're trying to say, let's use this technology to create something that is culturally significant, that elevates a culture in some way, but also brings people together as a community in order to collectively experience something, I think then we're going to be in a safe zone. But it's going to be a challenge to make sure that I think us as artists, it's important work for us to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make that happen.
Yeah, good point. Xuelong?
Yeah, these are all great points here. And I work with a team of 3D artists every day who come from a traditional 3D art background, and they're in real time seeing this shift towards AI models getting better and better, first starting with image and now video as well as 3D. And there are very important points that you both are raising about, you know, the sort of community impacts of AI and how it can both like bring people together, but also, you know, sow discord when it comes to copyright. I also want to talk a little bit about how are these tools getting presented to individual artists? Because at the end of the day, like, if you're an artist, you know, you have a craft, you've spent your life working towards this craft, you developed a set of skills, and now this thing is happening, and like, how do you react to it, you know, now that it's out? So I guess, like, you know, just to sort of set a ground assumption is that these models are going to get better and better. They're going to drive down the cost of production, and they are going to affect the way that artists do their work. Like, that to me is pretty clear, just seeing the trajectory of how these evolve. Now, as an artist, how do you respond to this, right? So I was speaking with a keyframe animator at LucasArts the other day, and he was telling me, like, artists have a big pride in the craft that they have. They enjoy the process sometimes of like painstakingly painting something in or like modeling a mesh, right? So we talk about like efficiency in AI, and you know, you can give an artist these tools, and if they sense that like the final product that they've created has somehow been altered by something not under their control, they will feel like they've sort of lost a sense of this ownership over the final product. And this is I think that this is a very like understandable and valid concern. So we have a responsibility as technologists to create tools that speak to the artists, that are designed with the artists in mind, and help them feel that they are not losing control over the creative process, but able to direct an AI in the same way that you might be able to direct like a junior artist, you know, or an assistant, and still feel like they have ownership over it. And you know, this starts with even the way that the tool is marketed and presented, and like the UI UX of these tools, right? Like, how much control do you give? How much do you peel back the layers and let artists explore like the underlying technology that's driving them? Or do you sort of make it like very user friendly. Like you just like with the click of a button, you just generate something. And that to an artist is going to feel less fulfilling than something that has a more like professional, creative, like Adobe Suite or Maya or any of these 3D tools that these artists came up using and are familiar with. Yeah.
I wonder. Sorry, I wonder how artists would feel if whatever they like, you just hook them up to a Neuralink, and whatever they thought manifests immediately on screen. Like, or does the artist? And maybe this is a question to everybody. Or do artists want to have to use their hands to translate whatever is in their brain onto a page?
Some
you know what I
kind
mean?
of process,
Yeah.
some kind of effort that
Right.
goes into it, physical
Right, there's
effort.
this like I love pottery, and that process of sitting there. I even like the process more than like looking at the bowl that I finished.
Yeah.
I think some artists want that, but at the same time, playing with Sora 2, I'm like, I like that I just have a stupid idea, and I'm just like, I just want to see what it looks like. Oh, there it is. Awesome.
A lot of the times, though, like the stupid ideas that I have were stupid ideas, and what I go out to make ends up being something different and better, right? When I find those limitations, because I can't get what's in my head out into the world, I end up making something that's actually better, right?
Oh, you mean because you're dealing with the limitation of the craft?
Or just a limitation of whatever, right? Yeah.
But see, the funny thing is that that's what I feel with Midjourney. Like, I feel like Midjourney doesn't give me exactly what I want. And then I, as a Midjourney artist, have adjusted around the hallucinations and be like, okay, I'm surfing the wave of what this thing is bad at. And now
Totally.
to me, it feels similar.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think someone was talking earlier about knobs, about Daydream particularly, like adding more and more features for stream diffusion in order to have that control. Exactly what you were talking about is making sure artists have control over the medium, that they don't feel like it's just a mystery black box, that they click a button and something happens. That's going to make artists mad, for sure. But in a situation where they have full control over those parameters and full control over that output in order to generate something that is meaningful.
What I'll also add is that, like, as you two are both speaking about, like, using the AI tool itself is its own skill, right? There is a learning curve, and you can produce slop or you can produce something amazing. And it all depends on, like, your intuitive understanding of how these models work, your own aesthetic eye, your ability to take a generation and then mold it and modify it over time to get closer to what you want. So of this room, right? The broader creative industry. But at the same time, like, the tools that we use shift, and what seems foreign today might be intuitive and commonly understood tomorrow. Like, I'm sure that when 3D programs first came out in like the 80s and 90s, people were like, what the heck is this, right? Like, they weren't used to thinking about triangles and meshes, and now if you're in the game industry or the VFX industry, this is like common knowledge. This is like, you understand, like, okay, a mesh is made of triangles, right? Maybe in the future you'll understand a clip is made up of data set references that are curated and sort of finely tuned to the output that you want to get, and this will become the intuition.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like we're all just living through this moment where everything is super chaotic and there's not a lot of common ground of like what is the common best practice that everyone kind of gravitate towards, and or the foundational knowledge, like, oh, like mesh is made of whatever, right? And I hope that comes through communities like this where people are coming together and sharing knowledge and figure out like, oh, this works, it doesn't work, and then with over time you can kind of start to navigate towards the right direction. And that that kind of leads me to looking at the communities that we're all in. Right, like we're all in a way, everyone on this stage is like building a community of creators and of artists that use AI, and we all see something that's interesting here that we wanted to like share with others. Maybe Kyle, starting with you. You work with a lot of young folks, right? And so when you're at the school, and you're also building a community outside of that school with the broader broader creative community. Like, what are the differences that you see, and what are the different, techniques you use when you're thinking about building creative communities like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciated, yeah, Dot Simulate earlier was talking about how significant community was to building all the tools that he's building as well. And I couldn't agree with that more. So Data Geek was developed with education as a foundation. And I think that is critical. If you're wanting to build some kind of community, some kind of scene around something, then there needs to be a foundation of education. It can't just be about like events or gatherings. There's got to be something that's about like organized educational opportunities for people. And if you build that as the foundation for what you're growing on top of, then things are going to grow and grow and grow and become this feedback loop where all of a sudden those people that were evolving out of that education come back and want to teach more people because they realize that that's the correct thing to do. So, and then out of that, then creates this massive community. In fact, so Data Geek, our nonprofit that we started about 10 years ago, ironically was modeled after Gray Area Foundation originally. Yeah, we were inspired by Gray Area and what they were doing here in San Francisco, so it's great to be here. And we said we want to do this in Austin in our own way, so there was a lot of focus on music and things like that for Austin to have its own twist. But that was the focus, was starting at education. We didn't want to just bring in artists and technologists to show cool things or to bring in artists and performers. We said, no, we want to organize classes so that we can start from the ground and educate everyone in Austin to make sure that we have this community. And sure enough, 10 years later, we have a thriving art and tech scene in Austin, and they're all contributing back into creating these workshops, creating these lectures, and creating all these different types of educational opportunities for everyone. And everyone is highly supportive of each other inside of that. So I think as long as you're starting there with the understanding of education, it will build and build and build on top.
All right, just a quick note for folks who are talking in the back there. There's actually quite a bit of echo, so if you can either quiet down a little bit or like move your conversation outside into the hallway, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so with that being said, let's continue. I'm curious to hear from Min and from Xuelong about like the way that you're building communities. Like what are your goals? How do you think about these communities? What motivate people to be a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for your answer as well. It's super inspiring that you started with an education focus and sort of grew like a community of evangelists from there who would basically spread the word and then contribute back. At Zero Space, which is the creative studio that I work at, we've also started hosting a lot of community events over the past 6 months to do a lot of the same things that you're talking about of connecting a lot of disparate communities in New York. There's so many universities teaching creative technology programs. There's a lot of creative professionals, and there's a lot of enthusiasts, like people who are just curious and passionate and want to learn more. Maybe they're thinking about taking their career into a more creative angle down the line, or maybe they're just doing this for fun. So I organized the communities around specific tools that we use as artists and bring in speakers that would give presentations on these tools. So a lot of those folks are actually in this room today. Like, for example, with the Comfy UI meetup that we do every month, that is hosted in partnership with LivePeer. With the Touch Designer meetup, we do that in partnership with that lab, and Lyle.Simulate was just on stage earlier today. And then we're also doing Unreal Engine. These are all sort of the tools that we use as a studio, and we hope to spread knowledge and sort of inspire people. Like, for example, when I was a student, I was an engineering student. I had no idea that any of this stuff was possible. Like, you could get a job doing this. And what I would have given to know what this is and be able to tailor what I was studying, what I was reading, like the kind of people I was talking to that direction. So I'm hoping to provide that for the next generation. And in these workshops, the goal is really, again, to educate, to show people what you can do today with these tools, and then have them meet and form spontaneous collaborations and new projects.
Yeah, and I guess with machine cinema, we literally started in our backyard, in our living rooms, and we were just watching each other prompt. That's how we started out 2 years ago, and ever since then, I think we've just leaned into how do we give more value to our members, right? We have an online community, and at some point, the group chat now has exceeded 2,000 people. But at some point, when we hit 400 people, I was like, there's way too many people in this group chat. We should probably do a weekly talk because people are too busy to watch the group chat, right? So every time we've made decisions around how do we continually give more value to people? How do we make sure, like, some people in the beginning era, they were going to our Gen Jams, which are basically, video hackathons. And it was like, at some point, they're like, we don't go anymore because we're too experienced. We're too professional, right? They have careers now. So we're like, okay, how do we make these video hackathons way harder to do? Like, now we're saying, hey, we're going to do 10 different tools. The theme and the challenge is to make something much better, much more high performing, blah, blah, blah. So like, every time we've greeted some opportunity where we're like, okay, how do we lean back into what does the local community need, or in particular, Los Angeles is just so much better, in my opinion, at storytelling. It's like in the DNA. And so like every time we do events there, they just understand what is an inciting incident, what is a beat, what is emotional, like how do you change an emotion from the end to the beginning, right? And when I go to, let's say, Berlin, or when I go to Mumbai, when we're doing events there, it's like, okay, we have to teach storytelling and the tool to that community, right? Depending on where we are. And so like that has been a kind of a journey of collaborating with like folks like Zero Space. Is like, what does the local community need, and how do we match that with what's happening in the space right now? So. Yeah,
that's nice. Like finding a local partner to really get the ground, get the ground truth of.
Yeah, and it's always hard because when I went to Europe, I'm American. I'm not used to the European time, which is slower. And so I'm like, why is everything happening so slow? We were supposed to make this happen. This is happening in 5 days. What's going on? And I'm like, at some level, I'd be like, all right, I'm in Europe. I'm an ignorant American. I gotta adapt.
Nice. Cool. So my last question for everyone. So relating to like the community that you're involved in, if you look down, 6, 12 months down the line, what are some goals that you have for your community? What are you looking forward to? Yeah, we can start with anyone.
Sure. So I think that with the community events we've been doing at Zero Space, the idea is to show people, sort of the intersections of art and technology, right? And train them up and introduce them to other enthusiasts in the community. So I would love to see our events grow by a factor of 10 in terms of attendance. That would be a really good problem to have. And I also think one of the things I'm working on right now, it's sort of nascent, but creating a digital platform for a lot of the discussions to live on after the event. So doing like Instagram Reels where you take short clips from the presentations and you share them in a way that is like bite-sized, approachable, and most importantly, discoverable by people who are outside of these communities, whether that's in terms of their field or in terms of geography, so that they still feel like they're getting some of the value and the learnings, while not, even if they can't necessarily attend. So I think that, this sort of short-form video approach is really going to do wonders for the amount of people that we can reach and impact. And so that's a really big goal of mine, in addition to the in-person attendance.
Nice. Yeah, Kyle?
I mean, how quickly, particularly pertaining to, AI and AI real-time video, the world is going to be different in 6 to 12 months entirely, which is exciting, it's thrilling. So one of the things that I think is really fun about this that I'm most excited about, one of our goals for Data Lab, our immersive art studio, is to try to create art that has depth to it, that can be engaged with, but is also accessible. And I think that there's a lot of art that doesn't span those territories. A lot of times art is just inaccessible to most people, or it is very surface level and there's not a lot of depth to it. So we always try to create something that's, let's say, has depth for adults, but like a kid could walk up to it and love it as well. And that's one of the things that AI real-time video absolutely does. I mean, it blows kids' minds when they see it. Like my daughter will just sit there and play with Stream Diffusion TD on my laptop and just be doing fun stuff and and it's funny because it's my job. I get to make these kinds of things, So I see a lot of power there with engaging and creating content that I think could be, first of all, highly real-time, highly low latency, where we feel very much so that our presence means something for the thing that I'm doing right now. My body is doing something. And that us as adults and artists can think deeply about that, but at the same time, you know, a 5-year-old could walk up to it and have a mind-blowing experience on that same exact work of art. And I think that's like the ultimate accomplishment as you can do as an artist, is just to try to create artwork that covers all of that. And yeah, I think that's coming real soon, so I'm excited about it.
I guess I have a lot of goals. So I want to launch more hubs, want to be in more continents. I'm going to try to spend 3 months in Asia and then 3 months in Latin America, trying to launch new AI film hubs out there. Want to support more artists to be featured. Want to support more startups, because every time I'm in San Francisco, I meet like 20 more AI filmmaking tools or creative tools. Want to find them and support them and get them in front of more artists around the world. My big goal is that, you know, like how Wikipedia is this like millions of people come together to create this one like entity that we call Wikipedia. I would love to be doing more creative projects where I can get thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions of people to create like singular works of art. That is one of our main missions at Machine Cinema. And so like, how do we do that? And yeah, and a lot of other things, but those are the main things.
That's awesome. That is a great note to end on. Well, so thank you so much, everyone, Min, Kyle, Xuelong, for being on our panel. All right, and that concludes our day for the first Real-Time Video AI Summit 2025.